The babysitter ad John sat at his kitchen table, tapping his fingers on the edge of his old, scratched phone. The rain outside hit the window in fast, hard drops. The house felt cold and empty, except for Emily, his 7-year-old daughter, who was busy coloring on the living room floor. John's new job was starting tomorrow, a night shift at the city hospital. He needed someone to watch Emily, but he had no family nearby, and his friends all worked the same hours as him. For days, he had posted ads online asking for a babysitter. Most replies were strange. Some people sounded too eager to fake. Some asked for too much money. John felt uneasy about every single one. He almost gave up. But tonight, as the rainstorm grew stronger and thunder rattled the old house, his phone buzzed. A new message written in perfect, polite English said, "Hello, I saw your ad. My name is Lyra. I have experience with children. I can come for an interview tonight, if that is okay." John looked at the clock. It was already almost 8 p.m. He hesitated, then typed back, "You can come." The address is 57 Maple Lane. He didn't know why he agreed. Maybe it was because he was tired. Maybe he was desperate. He watched the window, waiting for headlights, but none came. Suddenly, at 8:30, the doorbell rang. He opened the door and stared in surprise. A tall woman stood in the rain, not wet at all, even though she wore no coat. Her hair was long and shining silver, like it was made of moonlight. Her skin was pale, almost glowing, and her eyes were the deepest blue John had ever seen. She held out a small, perfect hand. "Hello, I'm Lyra," she said. Her voice soft but clear. John stepped aside to let her in, glancing nervously at the rainwater outside. Lyra moved with quiet grace, almost gliding instead of walking. Emily peeked from behind the couch, her eyes wide and curious. Lyra smiled at her, and Emily smiled back, immediately comfortable. John tried to act normal, even though his heart beat faster. He offered Lyra a chair and asked about her experience. She answered every question calmly, saying she had looked after children for many years, in many different places. She never named the towns, though her answers were polite but vague. She seemed different. Almost too perfect, Emily. Meanwhile, pulled her coloring book over to Lyra and pointed at her drawing. "Do you like unicorns?" Emily asked. Lyra looked at the picture, and for a moment, her blue eyes shimmered with something strange. "Yes," she said softly. "Unicorns are wonderful creatures. They can be very real if you believe." John watched their interaction and felt both comforted and uneasy. He couldn't place why. Maybe it was the way Lyra seemed to glow under the dim light, or how Emily, usually shy with strangers, was laughing already. After a while, John showed Lyra around the house. She listened carefully, nodding at every instruction. She asked about Emily's allergies, bedtime, and favorite snacks. Everything seemed normal, but there was still something odd. John noticed Lyra had no umbrella or bag. She wasn't wet at all, even though the rain outside was heavy. As the clock hit 10 p.m., John thanked Lyra for coming. He told her he would call her soon. But as she stood up, a sudden flash of lightning made the house flicker with strange blue light. For a split second, John thought he saw Lyra's reflection in the window, her eyes glowing, her skin almost transparent. Then it was gone. Lyra turned to him and smiled gently. "Thank you for trusting me," she said. Before John could answer, Emily ran over and hugged Lyra around the waist. Lyra bent down and whispered something in Emily's ear, making her giggle. When Lyra finally left, John stood by the door, his mind full of questions. Who was she, really? Why did Emily like her so much, so quickly? And why did it feel like, for a second, the whole house had changed when she arrived? He went to bed, tossing and turning. thinking about Lyra's glowing eyes and the soft blue shimmer that followed her every move. That night, as thunder crashed and the wind howled, Emily's toys in the living room shifted by themselves. The nightlight flickered on and off. John didn't sleep much. He had a feeling his search for a babysitter had brought something or someone into his life that would change everything. Strange happenings the next morning. John woke up early, his mind still spinning from the night before. Sunlight peeked through the curtains, painting golden stripes on the walls. Emily was already up, humming a little song while she made her bed. John watched her for a moment, thinking about Lyra and the odd things he'd noticed. Had he really seen her eyes glow, or was it just a trick of the storm? John tried to shake off the uneasy feeling. He made Emily's breakfast and poured her a glass of orange juice. "Did you like Lyra?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Emily nodded eagerly. "She's nice, Daddy. She told me a story about a blue horse that can run on the clouds. And when I had a bad dream, she held my hand and the dream went away." John smiled, but his worries grew. He decided to check the security camera footage he had set up in the living room, just to be sure everything was fine. When he watched the video, he saw Lyra sitting on the floor with Emily, reading a storybook. For a while, it looked normal, but then something strange happened. A toy car rolled across the floor by itself. Lyra noticed, looked directly at the camera, and gave a small, mysterious smile. Suddenly, the video went fuzzy, and the screen turned black. John's heart skipped a beat. He checked the camera. It was still working fine, but there was no new recording after that moment. He frowned and told himself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was just a glitch. He got ready for work, feeling nervous. Before leaving, he called Lyra and asked if she could watch Emily that night. Lyra answered on the first ring. "Of course," she said, her voice calm and gentle. "I will take care of Emily. You do not need to worry." John hesitated. "I'll be home by 2 a.m. Is that okay?" "It is perfect," Lyra replied. That evening, when Lyra arrived, the storm was gone. The sky was clear and the air felt fresh. Lyra wore the same simple dress as before, still with no bag, no phone, nothing but herself. She smiled at Emily, who ran to greet her. John tried to act normal, but he felt awkward. He told Lyra all the usual things: emergency numbers, Emily's bedtime, snacks in the fridge. Lyra listened with a kind, patient smile. As John left for work, he looked back one last time. Lyra and Emily were sitting at the table, coloring together. Emily was already laughing. Lyra looked up and caught John's eye. For a moment, her eyes flashed deep blue, almost glowing. John shivered, then forced himself out the door. At work, John found it hard to focus. Kept checking his phone, waiting for a call or a message, but nothing came. He worried more and more as the hours passed. At midnight, he finally gave in to his curiosity and opened a security app on his phone to watch the live camera feed from home. The feed was strange. He could see the living room, but everything looked blurry, as if fog filled the room. Suddenly, the screen cleared, and he saw Lyra standing in the center, holding her hands over Emily, who lay sleeping on the couch. Lyra was whispering softly in a language John couldn't understand. A soft blue light glowed around her hands. The toys in the room seemed to float for a second, then gently landed back on the shelves. John stared at the screen, frozen in shock. Was this magic? Or was it something else, something not from this world? Suddenly, the camera glitched again, and the feed cut out. John felt a cold sweat on his forehead. He tried to call home, but no one answered. His mind raced with worry. Should he leave work? Should he call the police? But what would he say that his babysitter was an alien? Time dragged slowly until his shift finally ended. John rushed home, his heart pounding in his chest. When he opened the door, Everything looked normal. Emily was asleep in her bed, hugging her favorite teddy bear. Lyra sat on the couch, reading a book. "Is everything all right?" John asked, trying to hide his panic. Lyra looked up and smiled softly. "Everything is fine, John." Emily had sweet dreams. She is a very special child. John nodded, pretending to believe her. But inside, he knew nothing was normal. He thanked Lyra and watched her leave, her steps silent, almost floating out the door. That night, John lay awake, replaying everything in his mind. He knew Lyra was hiding something. He knew Emily was now part of something strange, something impossible. And he had no idea how to protect her. All he could do was watch, wait, and hope the truth wouldn't be too terrible. The visitor in the night. John had trouble sleeping after the strange events he'd seen on his camera. The memory of Lyra's glowing hands and floating toys haunted his thoughts. Was he losing his mind, or was there truly something different? About this babysitter, every sound in the house seemed louder now. Every shadow seemed longer. The next night, John decided not to go to work. He called in sick and stayed home, pretending to watch TV in the living room. Emily was already in bed, her soft snores floating through the hallway. At exactly 10 p.m., the doorbell rang. John's heart jumped. He moved to the door slowly, peeking through the peephole. Lyra stood on the porch, looking calm as always. He opened the door, and she walked in, her silver hair shining in the dim light. "You are home tonight?" she asked politely, her eyes deep and unreadable. John nodded. "Yeah, I wasn't feeling well, so I stayed." Lyra gave him a gentle smile. "That is good. Sometimes it is best to rest." John tried to relax, but he watched Lyra carefully. She took a seat near the window, looking outside for a long time, as if she was waiting for something. John sat nearby, pretending to read a book, but really, he was watching her every move. Suddenly, the air in the house changed. It grew colder. The lights flickered, and a strange humming noise came from outside. John got up, his heart pounding in his chest. He crept to the window and pulled the curtain aside at the edge of the backyard. Near the old oak tree, he saw something impossible. A tall, thin figure stood there, its skin dark and shiny, its eyes glowing white. It looked up at the house, unmoving. John's mouth went dry. "Lyra," he whispered. She was already standing behind him, her hand on his shoulder. "Stay inside," she said quietly. "Do not open the door for anyone." He watched as Lyra walked calmly to the back door and opened it, stepping into the night without a coat or shoes. John wanted to call her back, but he felt frozen in place. He heard her speaking in that same strange language as before. Her words soft and musical, but full of power. The tall figure moved closer, and John could see now it wasn't human at all. It was something from another world, just like Lyra. But unlike Lyra, this creature looked angry. It pointed at the house, and the windows began to shake. Lyra raised her hand, her palm glowing with blue light. The creature spoke again, its voice sharp and metallic, echoing through the night. Lyra replied firmly, her voice never shaking. Suddenly, a beam of white light shot from the creature's eyes, aimed right at Lyra. She didn't move. Instead, a shimmering blue shield appeared around her, blocking the attack. The ground shook, and the air hummed with energy. Emily woke up, scared, and called for her father. John rushed to her room, scooping her up in his arms. "It's okay, sweetie," he whispered, even though he didn't believe it himself. The noise outside grew louder. John peeked out the window and saw the two aliens facing each other, locked in a silent, glowing battle. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything went quiet. The dark creature vanished into the night, and Lyra stood alone under the tree. Breathing hard, she came back inside, her hands shaking just a little. Emily ran to her, hugging her legs. "Was that a monster?" Emily asked, her voice tiny. Lyra knelt down, brushing Emily's hair gently. "No, Emily. Just someone who doesn't understand us. But he won't hurt you." John stared at Lyra, his fear and confusion mixing with something new trust. He had seen her protect his daughter with her own life. Whatever she wasn't a threat to them. Maybe, just maybe, she was the only thing keeping Emily safe. Lyra sat on the couch, closing her eyes for a moment. "I am sorry for bringing danger to your home," she said softly, "but Emily is special. Others can sense it. I am here to make sure nothing happens to her." John sat beside her, not sure what to say. He wanted answers, but he also wanted to believe that everything would be okay. He put his arm around Emily, holding her close. That night, no one slept much. John kept a watchful eye on the windows, but nothing else came. Emily fell asleep with her head in Lyra's lap, and John finally understood. Their lives had changed forever. Whatever secrets Lyra carried, they were now part of his family story. Outside, the rain started again, tapping on the roof like a warning and a promise that more was still to come. Asterisk secrets revealed they. Days after the midnight visitor were not normal in John's house. John started noticing even more strange things about Lyra. Whenever she touched the window, the glass would stop fogging up, even though it was cold outside. When Emily scraped her knee playing in the yard, Lyra just looked at her, and the pain seemed to go away instantly. Lyra always seemed to know what Emily needed, even before she asked. John's questions grew heavier every day. He knew he couldn't keep ignoring the truth. One evening, after putting Emily to bed, John found Lyra in the kitchen, silently watching the stars from the window. The blue glow from the streetlight made her silver hair look almost like a river. "Lyra," John said, his voice gentle but firm, "I need to know. What are you?" Lyra did not turn. For a few seconds, John thought maybe she wouldn't answer at all. Then she sighed a sound filled with both sadness and something like relief. "I am not from here," Lyra said quietly. My home is far. Away past the stars you see." John felt a cold shiver crawl up his back. "Are you an alien?" Lyra finally looked at him. Her eyes shimmered with that strange blue light again. But this time, John did not flinch. "Yes," she said, "but I did not come here to harm you. I was sent for a reason that involves Emily." John's heart pounded. He looked down the hallway, checking to make sure Emily was still asleep. "What do you mean?" whispered. Lyra walked over and sat at the table, motioning for John to join her. She spoke in a low, steady voice, the words both simple and impossibly deep. "On my world, there are two kinds of people, those who build and those who take. There has been a war between them for centuries. Some of my kind escaped, searching for a safe place. Others followed, wanting to capture us or use our powers. When I arrived on Earth, I was searching for a human child with a rare spark, a kind of energy that only a few possess. That energy makes them special, even among humans. Emily has it. That is why the others came. They want her." John's hands shook as he tried to take it all in. What happens if they get her? Lyra's voice turned cold. "They will use her. They will drain that spark, and Emily will become like an empty shell. She will never be the same." A wave of fear and anger crashed over John. "I won't let that happen," he said fiercely. Lyra nodded. "I know. That's why I chose you and Emily. I sensed your strength when I read your ad. You are brave, John, and you love Emily more than anything. That is a power too." For a moment, they sat in silence. The kitchen clock ticked loudly, counting down the seconds. John finally found his voice again. "What do we do now?" he asked. Lyra stood, her posture tall and proud. We prepare. The others know where Emily is. They will not stop. But we have hope they fear what they do not understand. And together, we are stronger than they think. Just then, Emily's voice called from her room. Daddy, Lyra. John hurried to her side. Emily looked scared, her eyes wide. There's something outside my window, she whispered. John and Lyra rushed to the window. Outside, under the streetlight, a shadow moved, tall and thin, just like the creature from the night before. Its eyes glowed white. Lyra placed her hand on the glass, and a faint blue shimmer spread across the window like frost. The shadow retreated. Melting into the darkness, Emily hugged Lyra tightly. Are you a superhero? She asked softly. Lyra smiled, a sad, gentle smile. No, Emily. But I will always try to protect you. John tucked Emily back into bed, sitting with her until she fell asleep. He went back to the kitchen where Lyra was waiting. He was scared, but now his fear was mixed with purpose. He wasn't alone anymore. Together, they would fight for Emily. Lyra looked at John, hope shining in her blue eyes. We have little time. Tomorrow, I will show you how to make this house safe, but you must be ready. The next time they come, they will not be alone. John nodded. I'm ready. I'll do anything for Emily. The night grew silent again, but it was a different kind of silence, one that held secrets. Courage, and the first spark of trust between a human father and the alien woman who had turned his world upside down. Outside, the stars seemed to burn a little brighter, as if watching over them. The attack the following day, the world outside John's house looked normal. Birds sang, cars passed on the street. But inside, John's heart was racing. The warning from Lyra played in his mind. They will come, and they will not be alone. After breakfast, Lyra began showing John what she meant about making the house safe. She moved through each room, touching the windows and doors. Everywhere she touched, a faint blue light appeared for a second, then vanished. These are shields, Lyra explained. They cannot keep out everything, but they will slow the others down. And they will hide Emily's energy for a little while. John nodded, determined to do whatever was needed. He helped Lyra gather common things: salt, silver coins, even the old wind chime from the porch. They placed these items in patterns Lyra showed him. Some of our enemies fear the old ways, she said. Even on your world, such things have power. As the sun began to set, the sky turned orange and purple. John felt a deep fear settling in his stomach, but he tried not to show it. Played quietly with her dolls, but John noticed she kept glancing at the windows, as if she could sense something coming. That night, after dinner, Lyra told John to keep all the lights off and stay together in the living room. She sat with Emily in her lap, whispering soft words in her own language. John peered through the curtains, searching for any sign of movement outside. Then it happened. A low, droning sound filled the air, like a swarm of angry insects. The lights in the street flickered and died. Outside, shapes moved between the trees, tall, thin, and wrong. Their eyes shone like flashlights in the darkness. John's breath caught in his throat. He counted at least 6 figures, maybe more. Suddenly, a bright white beam struck the front door. The blue shield Lyra had placed flared up, sparking and buzzing, but it held strong. The aliens pressed their hands against the shield, hissing in their strange language. John, take Emily and hide in the basement, Lyra said quietly. Do not open the door, no matter what you hear. But what about you? John whispered. Lyra smiled bravely. I will hold them back as long as I can. Protect Emily. That's all that matters. John scooped Emily into his arms and hurried down the basement steps, locking the door behind him. Emily clung to her teddy bear, her small hands trembling. Upstairs, John could hear strange bangs and shouts. the house shook. He felt helpless. He wanted to fight, but he didn't know how. Then, through a small basement window, John saw a flash of blue and white light. For a second, Lyra stood outside, her hands raised, facing the alien invaders. They tried to surround her, but Lyra spun in a circle, sending a wave of shimmering blue energy into the air. The nearest creature fell back, screaming in pain. Suddenly, the back door burst open. Two of the aliens crept into the basement, their long arms reaching for Emily. John grabbed a metal pipe, his hand shaking but his heart full of courage. He swung at the first creature, hitting its arm. The creature hissed in pain and backed away. Just then, Lyra's voice echoed through the house, strong and powerful. "You will not take her." Blue light filled the basement, and the two aliens froze as if turned to stone. Lyra ran down the stairs, her eyes blazing with energy. She placed her hands on the creatures' heads and whispered a word. The aliens collapsed, UNMOVING. John stared at Lyra in shock and relief. "How did you?" "There is no time," Lyra said. "We must leave this place. More are coming, and the shields are failing." John grabbed Emily's coat and followed Lyra up the stairs. The house was in chaos, furniture overturned, blue sparks flickering along the walls. Outside, the sky was a deep, angry red, as if the whole world was holding its breath. Lyra led them through the back door and into the darkness, away from the lights and the voices of the invaders. They ran, branches whipping past, the cold air biting their skin. John didn't look back. He only thought of Emily's safety. Behind them, the house crackled with light and sound. The enemy was inside now, searching for something they would never find. They ran deeper into the woods, hearts pounding, not knowing where they would end up, but knowing that as long as they were together, they still had hope. The Great Escape Night. In the woods felt deeper and colder than any night John could remember. He carried Emily, her arms tight around his neck, while Lyra moved quietly ahead, her silver hair shining under the faint light of the moon. Behind them, the sky above John's house glowed a strange, flickering red. He didn't want to think about what the invaders were doing there now. Branches scratched his arms as they hurried through the dark trees. Emily shivered but made no sound, trusting her father and Lyra. John's chest burned from running, but he pushed himself harder. Every few minutes he glanced back, fearing he'd see those terrible white eyes again. They soon reached an old, abandoned factory hidden behind a wall of wild bushes and broken fencing. Lyra stopped and pressed her palm against a rusted door. The metal shimmered blue, then swung open with a heavy groan. Inside, the air was thick with dust. Broken machines and empty crates filled the shadows. John set Emily down gently, and she clung to his hand. Lyra moved with purpose, leading them deep into the heart of the building. "Is this safe?" John whispered. "For now," Lyra answered, checking the corners for movement. "But we must hurry." They squeezed past a wall of crates and entered a room that looked strangely out of place. In the middle of the floor sat a silver pod, smooth and shining, with small blue lights glowing along its sides. It was shaped like a giant drop of water. Emily gasped. Even John stared, his mouth falling open. "Is that?" He started, but Lyra nodded before he could finish. "My ship," she said softly. "I hid it here when I first came to your world." John stared at the pod, trying to wrap his mind around the truth. Lyra moved to the side of the ship, touching symbols that lit up under her fingers. "It's damaged," she explained, worry in her voice. "I can fix it, but I need time, and Emily's help." Emily blinked. "My help, but I don't know how to fix spaceships." Lyra smiled gently. "You don't need to know. Your energy or spark can wake it up." Before John could protest, Lyra knelt in front of Emily and held out her hand. Emily took it. Lyra guided her to the pod and placed her palm on its surface. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the ship glowed brighter. Blue light ran beneath Emily's hand, spreading out in patterns, lighting up the room. The pod hummed softly, and the air felt suddenly warm and safe. Lyra worked quickly, pressing buttons and speaking words John couldn't understand. The pod's door opened with a hiss. "Get in," she said urgently. John picked up Emily and climbed inside, feeling the soft, strange material under his feet. Lyra jumped in last, sealing the door behind them. The pod's walls shimmered, and a gentle blue light filled the small space. Outside was a new sound, a loud screech, and heavy footsteps crashing through the factory. The enemy had followed them. John's heart raced as he heard angry voices and saw flashes of white light through the pod's tiny windows. Lyra placed her hands on the controls, but the ship shook violently. "Hold on," she shouted. Emily grabbed her father's arm. The pod rattled, then suddenly lifted off the ground with a jolt. The factory roof split apart like paper as the ship pushed upward. John held Emily tight as they soared into the night sky, leaving Earth's surface far below. For a few moments, everything was a blur, stars spinning, lights flashing, Emily's laughter and John's disbelief mixing with fear. Then calm returned. They were floating above the world, the blue shield still holding strong. John looked down through the window and saw their old house in the distance, now surrounded by strange lights and shadows. He realized, with a sad heart, that he might never see it again. But when he looked at Emily safe in his arms and at Lyra, who had risked everything for them, he knew they had chosen the right path. Lyra set a course on the controls. "We're going to a safe place now," she said softly. "A world where they can't follow. It's far, but we will be together." John finally let himself relax, just a little. He pulled Emily close and looked at Lyra with gratitude and wonder. As the ship glided quietly through the stars, Emily whispered, "Are we really flying in space now, Daddy?" John smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going on a great adventure." And for the first time since this all began, John felt hope shining in the dark just as bright as the blue light around them. A new home among the stars. The journey through space was nothing like John had imagined. There was no roar of engines, only a quiet hum inside Lyra's ship. Through the small window, he saw stars brighter than any night on Earth. Nebulas glowed in shades of blue and purple. Whole worlds seemed to drift by as they traveled deeper into the galaxy. Emily was filled with questions. She pressed her nose to the glass, her eyes wide. "Are there other children out there?" she asked. Lyra smiled gently. "There are many children on many worlds, Emily, and some are waiting to be your friend." John listened, still amazed that this was real. Sometimes he thought he was dreaming. Sometimes fear crept in, wondering if their enemies would somehow follow. But Lyra assured him, "The ship's shield hides us. They cannot track us now." One day in space blurred into the next. Lyra's ship had everything they needed: food, clean water, even a place to sleep. Lyra spent hours teaching Emily strange songs and words from her own world. Emily learned quickly, laughing at Lyra's stories of flying animals and silver trees. John started to relax. He realized how much his old life had changed. There were moments when he missed Earth's the smell of rain, a feeling of grass under his feet, even the busy noise of the city. But he looked at Emily and saw how brave she was. She was not afraid. She had made a friend who would cross the stars for her. Lyra spent quiet evenings looking out the window. Sometimes John joined her. One night as Emily slept, John asked the question that had been in his heart since they escaped. "Why did you choose us, Lyra?" "Why, Emily? Lyra was silent for a moment. On my world, I was a protector. My people sent me to find someone with a pure spark, a human child with a heart so strong it could change the future. When I saw your ad, I saw hope in your words. And when I met Emily, I felt it. She is rare, John. She has a gift, and so do you be, 'cause you love her more than anything. That is why I stayed. John nodded, feeling a warmth inside that pushed away the last shadows of fear. We're not special, he said quietly. We're just a family. Lyra's eyes glowed softly. That is what makes you special. Suddenly, the ship's lights flashed green. A new planet came into view, a world covered in blue oceans and green forests, much like Earth, but bigger and brighter. Small lights sparkled in the dark, marking peaceful cities by the sea. Lyra smiled and pointed out the window. This is our new home. My people live here, far from the war. You will be safe, all of you. As the ship landed gently in a field of tall grass, John held Emily close. The door opened with a soft hiss. Warm air filled the cabin, smelling of flowers and rain. Outside, people were waiting tall, kind-faced, with shimmering eyes like Lyra's. One by one, they came forward, greeting John and Emily with words that soon sounded like welcome. Emily hid behind John at first, but Lyra knelt and whispered, "You are safe here. These people are my family. Now, they are yours too." Emily stepped forward, shy but brave. A group of children ran up, laughing, and offered her a silver ball to play with. In minutes, she was running in the grass, her laughter ringing out under the alien sun. John walked beside Lyra, feeling peace settle over him. The memories of fear and running slowly faded. Here, in this new world, he was just a father again, a father who had crossed galaxies to keep his daughter safe. Lyra showed them their new home, a cozy house near a river, with wide windows and a garden full of bright, alien flowers. At night, the sky glowed with 3 moons and 1,000 stars. As the days passed, John learned the customs of Lyra's people. He helped build homes, plant gardens, and tell stories around the fire. Emily learned their games and taught her new friends how to draw unicorns, just like she had back on Earth. Sometimes, John would stand outside at night, looking up at the vast sky, remembering everything they had lost, then everything they had gained. He knew their old world was far away, but in this new place, they had found a new family, new hope, and a future bright with possibilities. And when Lyra stood beside him, smiling up at the stars, John realized that meeting an alien babysitter really had turned his world upside down, but maybe, just maybe, it had turned it the right way up.